Lead writer of Fight News, and we're with Brian Graham once more.
Brian Graham, deputy sports editor of The Guardian.
We took a well-deserved week or two off from our Vegas special. And,
we needed it.
Yeah, we did. We
needed it. Vegas is a movie.
It is. It's also a 4 a.m. finish.
Vegas
Possibly
is the
5.
cost of America.
Especially at the blackjack table.
Vegas is... I don't know what Vegas is, but all I know is that I'm...
Interesting fact, I don't believe we spent more than 8 hours outside of casino in 48 or 60 hours.
I mean, I was there longer than that, and it's probably the same.
Yeah. Note to Johnny Rockets, improved the nighttime service. Cannot wait 2 hours for a burger again.
Yeah, that third shift at Johnny Rockets is always precarious.
Tough spot for anyone who goes there. Well, welcome. We're going to dip right into it because...
Boxing.
Yeah.
Boxing's the big thing these days.
It's
so popular, so hot right now.
4.4 million people would agree.
So hot right now, boxing.
So, as we no doubt heard today, the figures for Mayweather-Pacquiao came out, 4.4 million pay-per-view buys and growing.
$400 million in revenue. Those are both records. Doubles the record for pay-per-view buys, triples the record for domestic revenue. They're saying $500 million total once they tally up, the international TV rights and the merchandise.
And once they finalize the pay-per-view numbers, which are still growing.
Which are still growing, because people do buy those fights the week after.
Yeah.
Even though I'm not sure how much of a word-of-mouth fight this was. Mm-hmm. That number could go up,
But they're projecting well over 500 million, like you said.
That is just
extremely
crazy.
Profitable event.
That is a number. I'll go on record and say that won't be broken for a long time.
I don't see how it can.
I don't see how that number is broken for a long time. It's really, really set the bar high.
We're talking, fighters 20, 30 years in the making who are...
Yeah, it'll take a long time. I mean, the last record, De La
Hoya
Mayweather, that's only 8 years, but this pretty much came close to doubling it. So,
yeah. And it also broke the gate record.
Yeah, I mean, consider that I think this is only the third fight that's ever gone over 2 million.
Yeah,
and only the 7th fight that's ever gone over 1.5. Just to put that number in perspective.
And it also another factor I completely forgot while I was thinking too loudly.
What's that?
There was another interesting segment, actually.
What is that?
It was I will get back to that because I had it off the top of my head, but my phone was ringing, so
You've lost your train of thought. This happens to you. It's been happening more and more since we got back from Vegas.
It is. My brain cells are trying to regenerate, or I've lost too many. But
oh my goodness, still sluggish 9 days later.
Yeah.
What did you?
We were both there.
We were there.
I felt as though Pacquiao's injury wasn't too visible during the fight, although he did slow down after a few combinations. Since I sort of replayed this past weekend, I felt as though, one, I wasn't quite sure what Floyd Sr. was saying to Floyd at most times, and two, Floyd's footwork and ring work was just that much better.
I think my sort of elevator speech, 25 seconds or less takeaway from the fight is basically Floyd Mayweather is better at what he does than Manny Pacquiao is at what he does. I personally think that would be true in 2012 and 2010 and 2008. Obviously, I think it might have been a little more interesting if we did see Pacquiao at that sort of whirling dervish peak, that destructive force of nature, the typhoon from across the Pacific that Larry Merchant dubbed him back in 2008 against Oscar De La Hoya. But I do think at the end of the day, the story of the fight was that reach, the 5-inch reach advantage, and Floyd's ability to sort of manage that, negotiate it, and really press the advantage. And it's what makes Floyd this sort of ultimate thinking man's fighter of, this generation or maybe other generation.
Absolutely. Threw more jabs, landed more telling punches, controlled the pace.
He outthrew him,
I
believe.
A rare occasion.
I think, Pacquiao's punch output has gone down. A decline that I think sort of recent opponents may have sort of masked a little bit. But I saw from the first round that it was going to be a long night for Manny because you could just tell he knew he was going to have to pay the price to get inside that right, and it was going to be difficult for him.
And he, what I found surprising during that fight is he would not block the jab. He would come in with hands down. Mm-hmm. And no offense, but that's how Marquez clocked him.
Yeah.
It seems though he hasn't really learned. He just hasn't experienced the punch like that.
Yeah.
And it's probably only a matter of time if he goes in from some sources are saying Terence Crawford in the near future. That's going to cause a problem because if you can't change that style or technique, then you're going to have a bad day.
Yeah. Yeah, you're going to have a bad time, as they say.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. I think all things considered, people seem to be a little disappointed with the fight. To me, it's, I don't know what you chalk that up to. I think at the end of the day, you sort of, this was the fight we were going to get. Floyd's the master of sort of, talking things up, and sort of giving the implication that, it might be, he might be a little more offensive minded this time around and so forth. But, listen, the guy put a line through the Victor Ortiz fight, and he has one knockout in a decade. And that was Ricky Hatton before his retirement.
In his defense, he did hit a ring post.
And Ricky Hatton did hit a ring post. But yeah, combined, those fighters had, I think, one knockout in the past 5 years. So I think we expected a decision. Obviously, anything can happen. Everyone expected a decision in the fourth Marquez-Pacquiao fight, and look what happened there. I mean, that's why we love this sport. I mean, anything can happen, but I think at the end of the day, things went relatively according to form. That combined with a pretty dismal undercard.
Very, very poor, I have to say.
I was talking with somebody today, not to segue out of this, but how nice would it have been if we could have had Canelo Alvarez, James Kirkland right after the Pacquiao Mayweather fight. How many parties would have been saved?
Yeah, that would have ignited anyone.
Would have saved the night.
But you did bring up a good point. Vasyl Lomachenko did win on the undercard.
He did, in sort of a showcase bout. Mm-hmm. I think basically the way it broke down with the Mayweather and Top Rank, with this sort of unique joint pay-per-view, what they decided to do was outside of the main event, which obviously they came together. They decided to just each promoter would get one fight to sort of put a showcase guy in. So Top Rank put in Lomachenko, Mayweather Promotions put in Santa Cruz.
Yeah, Santa Cruz. And,
but both of them were they were sort of classic 90-10 showcase bouts. I think Lomachenko, I believe, at the MGM Grand Sportsbook was minus 2,600.
He was indeed.
That's not gonna. This was a night they could have. We won't stay on this too long, and I realize I'm going on here.
It's a good point nonetheless.
But I honestly, I was very disappointed with the undercard for this fight, because obviously now, especially now that you're seeing the numbers coming in, certainly they were predictable. Obviously they were going to make $500 million off this fight. It just occurs to me as rather short-sighted in a very symbolic way that boxing realized it had sort of the eyes of the world on it for one night, and the best they can do with that undercard as far as maybe a down payment on new fans. I mean, it seems like, the Canelo Alvarez versus Floyd Mayweather fight in September 2013, the co-feature bout on that was Danny Garcia, Lucas Matisse. And it seemed like we were moving in a direction where at least maybe the co-feature bout would be a 50-50 fight, sort of a top-level fight, a fringe pay-per-view fight on its own. Extremely, extremely disappointed in the undercard for this fight.
I don't know who's really to blame for that. They asked for $100 or $89.95 if you're watching an SD. But at the end of the day, you're paying $100. You're expecting a premium product. Not to say that the main event didn't deliver on all fronts. It was still a very technical showcase, I want to say. But at the end of the day, $100, that did not cut it for $100 in terms of a complete production.
No, absolutely not. And
well, it was great to see Al Bernstein with Jim Lampley.
It was. Yeah. It was.
And Roy Jones and Lennox Lewis.
Yeah, to be honest, I still haven't. I did rewatch the fight, but I've rewatched the Sky Sports telecast of it. So I'm looking forward to sitting down with the HBO Showtime joint team.
Yeah. We also were lucky enough to speak to Shane Mosley afterwards.
Sugar Shane
Mosley.
One of 5 people to have fought both Mayweather.
A very good point, and some may say the closest to actually winning a fight up until the 5th round started, pretty much.
As far as Mayweather?
As far as eliminating Mayweather and actually catching Mayweather clean.
Right. That's true.
Never seen that.
Very rare.
Yeah.
Very rare.
This is what Shane had to say afterwards about the fight. You fought both men, and we've seen pretty much what someone will say is the fight of the millennium. How did you feel about that fight?
I thought both guys were pretty sharp. Both guys were real sharp, and I was like, "Wow, this was a great fight." I mean, I thought guys were in great, tremendous condition, and they had to fight a tactical fight because it was tactical.
Do you feel as though Manny was just coming up against a superior opponent, or do you feel that he slowed down and he had to catch up and just couldn't do it towards the later rounds?
No, I thought Manny did a great job. I thought Manny did good, and it could have went either way, but I kind of favored Manny a little bit in that fight.
Oh, so how did you see the fight in terms of scoring or rounds?
Rounds were close, but I mean, I thought, Manny did a great job. I mean, that fight, he was ducking shots, he was missing some shots, he was hitting with left hands, he was throwing a lot of punches.
Yeah, he was definitely being more aggressive.
He was more aggressive, throwing more punches, he was landing more punches, I thought.
Yeah.
And he did a great job.
And what about Floyd? Do you feel like he was just that good?
Floyd did a great job, too. He was sharp, he was countering real good, he was doing ring generalship, doing stuff he's supposed to do as a champion, but it seemed that Manny was doing a lot of work. I don't know. It was great. It was a great fight though for both guys, tactically.
Where do you see Manny going after this then, in theory?
I just say rematch. I mean, that has to be a rematch to happen.
Yeah, I think the fans would love that as well. It's the only other fight that could.
Yeah, that's only. I mean, if you can't get somebody else to fight Floyd that's up and coming, that's not going to work. You can't do the same thing for Manny after that fight. Those two guys have to fight. They probably must fight each other. Because any other fight is not going to do it any justice.
I completely agree. So,
Sugar Shane Mosley.
Sugar Shane Mosley.
Keep it in your pants, buddy. I mean, obviously, this rematch is going to happen, but you at least got to sort of build up to it.
Yeah, build it up.
Obviously.
He's trying to reveal the script too soon.
Unbelievable. They can't be too thrilled about that. At least be like Floyd and call him a coward, go back and forth, waffle a little bit.
Yeah, at least give us something to look
at. Listen, interesting points by Sugar Shane all around. Obviously, it was going to be a tactical fight. As long as Floyd sort of kept it the way he wanted to, and obviously he controlled the pace. And I do think Manny, listen, it's tempted to sort of fall into the hive mind with this stuff, and I certainly don't think I was too close to this event in the sense of not being able to look at it objectively, but I did feel a little bit on the outside of the sort of broad reactions to this fight. I felt it was a competitive, hard-fought fight. I think Floyd won uncontroversially, but I mean, I never, certainly there were tense moments early on. There wasn't necessarily that sort of cathartic payoff that people were looking for, but I did think it was a competitive fight full of relatively close rounds, and I think Floyd won, again, uncontroversially, but to me it wasn't this complete, abomination, this complete non-competitive whitewash that sort of the reaction implies.
What I find interesting is that those who viewed it on TV clearly saw that Floyd was winning, but those in the arena actually had it going the other way. It wasn't just Sugar Shane Mosley who said that. Mm-hmm. I believe you had another Guardian writer who called it. There were a few writers at ringside who did call it for Pacquiao.
Yeah, my colleague Kevin Mitchell at the Guardian, he and I have trouble with even rounds. I'm not really sure when to score them. I very, very rarely score rounds even, but my colleague Kevin Mitchell did score 3 rounds even, and I think he got to 116, 115 to Pacquiao, and this is a veteran sort of esteemed boxing observer, and it really doesn't square with what people saw, but you score the rounds one at a time, and you can't go back. And people do go back, believe me, I've seen it. But just one at a time. I can't go that far as to say Pacquiao won, but I don't know. It was a competitive fight.
It was indeed. I'm glad that there was no controversy. I know there was controversy with a split decision against Alvarez.
Mm-hmm.
So that
I think one of only. I think Floyd's entire career, he's only had 3 scorecards that he hasn't won. He lost a scorecard to De La Hoya, and he has 2 draws, one with Canelo and one with Maidana.
Yeah, it's that blueprint, I'll tell you.
It's around.
That there is truth in it. Who knows? De La Hoya is closer than many thought.
Yeah, De La Hoya, only person to win a scorecard off Floyd.
But speaking of Shane Mosley, if any of you aren't aware, he seems to have reinvented himself and is providing endless amounts of entertainment on Twitter.
Sugar Shane Mosley, if you're not sort of involved in Twitter, certainly boxing Twitter, which obviously is a subset, lost his verification checkmark this week.
Many were unsure whether it actually was Sugar Shane Mosley.
This is a multi-division world champion. I had no idea until you told me, Arvin, that there was a measure of, controversy or sort of doubt as to whether or not that was or was not Shane Mosley. I always believed it was. But yeah, he did send out a video this week, sort of confirming it's him and asking for his checkmark back. Yep. And there was a little something in his presentation that made me a little bit upset.
Yeah, it's a different side of Shane Mosley which none of us have ever seen before. And loved the back and forth with Paulie Malignaggi. That was always interesting.
Yeah.
But it's interesting because Paulie and Shane who knows, they may fight eventually, considering that you never know in boxing. Paulie's back in the ring. Shane wouldn't mind a return in the ring, I want to say.
That's a fight I would gladly... gladly might be overstating it, but that's a fight that I would abide.
It may not be main event, but it's...
It's Paulie, bless his heart, amazing commentator, great fighter, world champion, but, not a guy I'm worried about sort of bouncing Sugar Shane's brain around his skull.
That is true.
Too bad. True. So as far as the line about Sugar Shane's sort of health and safety, if you're going to put him in with an opponent, why not Paulie,
Absolutely. Fun for the whole family.
Yeah, fun for the whole family.
Can't go wrong. But it's also Shane's different side. Hopefully, he's everything's okay with him. His son is still boxing. I know he got a couple of wins recently, so notable shout out. And yeah, just a good end to a Vegas trip, I want to say.
I'd say. I haven't had a chance to look it up because I didn't realize we were going to go too far into Shane's fighting career. But if I remember correctly, his last fight was against one Canelo Alvarez.
He did.
And I believe that was on the... Or did he have a fight after that?
I believe he fought Anthony Mundine.
Oh, did he in Australia?
He did.
No, but did that fight not happen, though? Remember? It was scheduled? Look that up. Look that up over there.
I am looking this up as we speak. This is...
I believe his last fight was a
junior boxing historians. We need to know this.
Yeah, no, because I remember I wrote about the Mosley-Alvarez fight, and I believe it is on record one of the biggest age differences in a world championship fight. Was that his last fight?
It was not. He did fight Anthony.
He did fight Mundine eventually. Oh, and he lost by knockout.
He did. I believe he
hurt his
back.
And he had never been stopped before. I know that.
Yeah, that was his first stoppage.
Maybe he should stop.
Who knows? But I know Shane will be listening. So Shane, feel free to get back into the ring if you want to.
Shane,
we won't recommend it.
We support you no matter what you do. Big fan.
Huge fan. And we move on. We move on to what was a devastating KO, I want to say.
Yes, certainly. Canelo Alvarez versus the enigmatic, fascinating James Kirkland.
He had some very, very kind words before the fight from the HBO conference, I believe.
What is that?
Oh, how he was going to get close enough, to really F with him. He's not going to shower. He's going to smell his musk. He's going to let him know he's in a dogfight.
Yeah, listen, Kirkland's one of those guys, comes around every now and then, just a total wild card. I think hasn't been in a fight that has gone the distance since, I believe, June of 2007. And I think before his previous fight, not Saturday, but the previous fight, he had gone 12 straight fights where either he had been knocked down or his opponent had been knocked down. So just always in fights, always in entertaining fights, always two-way action, big hitter, not too much on the defense.
Very little defense was shown against Alvarez. Do you feel as though...
No spoilers.
He was put in at the wrong time, considering he had such a significant layoff and you're fighting a fairly fresh Alvarez.
Yeah, well, Alvarez is coming off a career-long layoff as well in 10 months. I mean, as far as Kirkland, I believe it had been 17 months. But that's not the story of it for me. And listen, obviously the story everyone's clinging to is the fact that he went in without his longtime trainer and Wolf. I think the one other major time, HBO actually got that wrong. He had fought a few times without Ann Wolf, but the sort of one other major time he fought without her, he was knocked out in the first round by the light-hitting Nobuhiro Ishida, who himself actually got some good fights out of that.
Yeah, very good fights.
But yeah, a notoriously light-hitted puncher knocked out Kirkland in the first round. So there was a hugely bad omen, I would say, going into this fight without the trainer that more or less is able to... I have no doubt Kirkland's conditioning was okay, but as far as really being able to sort of... I mean, she's the Kirkland whisperer.
Yeah,
she's been able to sort of conjure his best performances. I can't say for sure Kirkland would have won that fight with her, but I have no doubt that it would have gone further. He would have been able to ask questions of Canelo.
Yeah, or he would have just not sustained that much damage because there was generally no blocking those punches.
Yeah.
He'd come in, hands are always down.
Yeah.
Even in that final KO punch, he dropped both hands.
Yeah.
And I was wondering, what are you expecting?
And then Canelo completely looped that punch.
Yeah.
I mean, it was like out of a comic book.
Yeah, and we seem to be seeing Canelo getting better and better, which is kind of a blip on his record because he probably fought Floyd when he was too young, too inexperienced.
Yeah.
Because now we're seeing that perfect timing, that footwork into the right position.
But the Floyd thing is that's perfect because, listen, as far as the Mexican fans are concerned, and I don't speak for everybody, but sort of the general consensus I get is he lost to a guy that didn't want to fight that night. So he lost very little in the way of sort of popular support. No, and he took a loss with it, got a huge paycheck, and didn't really get beaten up at all.
No.
Do you know what I mean? So like, it's not, he lost a fight. That's the worst thing that happened was he got a 1 on his record in the loss column. And I don't know. I mean, I do think this is a guy that's earning a lot of respect because he will fight anybody. I mean, he fought a guy that was considered the biggest problem fighter in the division in Lara, and certainly, it's a guy that really does seem like legitimately to not really turn down a fight.
Yeah, he's a very good, honest boxer. I wouldn't say. We saw after the fight, he immediately went to Kirkland, showed genuine concern, and goes down well with every fight fan. No one wants to see someone with too huge of an ego, and I feel that's where we kind of see the negative side of Floyd.
Yeah.
Turns out to be the positive side of Alvarez.
Yeah.
Where he's winning over fans.
Yeah, I mean, he's still a young man. Obviously, he's back with HBO. Obviously a big fight looms possibly with Miguel Cotto.
Yeah, just to round up that, you said it was a big fight with HBO. Just how big?
Oh, yeah, they put out numbers today. I forget the exact number as far as...
2.2 million.
I thought it was a little higher.
2.4.
Yeah, as far as the average viewership for the fight was, they said the highest for an HBO World Championship Boxing telecast since Bernard Hopkins, Antonio Tarver in 2006. That's per HBO. So a good rating. Obviously, Canelo is a big draw. I would say no worse than the second. After this Pacquiao loss, who knows? But Canelo is certainly no worse than the number 3 draw in boxing.
Yeah, it was
so the average viewership, yes, was 2.146 million viewers, peaking at 2.29. I don't know. Very interesting fight.
Positive signs, especially coming after the Mayweather-Pacquiao telecast. It was advertised well for...
Yeah. It was good, and over 30,000 people turned up for the fight at Minute Maid Park, which is the home of the Houston Astros, the baseball team. I think it was a positive event, and we're sort of it was an interesting way, I would say, to re-enter the sort of real life boxing from that sort of insane thing we're just going to remember as like a fever dream. As re-entry goes, it was a nice event. Obviously, we have a nice event coming up this weekend that we'll talk about shortly, a few more things in June. So we're
tie up the rest of Texas that day. It was a busy place, busy state.
Mm-hmm.
We also saw Omar Figueroa against Ricky Burns in a fairly entertaining event on CBS.
Yes, the Premier Boxing Championship chugs along with Figueroa versus Ricky Burns, who I guess lost the lightweight title to in the previous fight. Was that to
James Crawford? He did lose.
After getting that gift decision versus our friend Ray Beltran.
He did indeed, very close decision. Broke his jaw.
He did.
But that was a very entertaining fight.
But Figueroa looked good. Yeah, absolutely.
Little bit over the weight, I want to say.
Yeah.
By a pound.
A lot of weight problems this weekend.
It seems to be not just Texas, but a regular occurrence on PBC events. But although I will also say Golden Boys event with Frankie Gomez coming in 6 pounds over, I think.
Yeah, well, I think the rumor, and I don't know how much of the rumor is fact, but apparently they had. I mean, this doesn't make it better by any means, but apparently they had negotiated sort of under the table that the 140 limit was going to be moved to 145. And then I believe he missed 145, and I think he came in at 146.5.
Which even in its own right is a ridiculous increase.
Yeah, so listen, to miss weight by 6.5 pounds is like off the charts absurd, but like to miss it by 1.5 pounds is absurd. So
still the same. You're offered that competitive advantage, whether you intended that to be the case or not.
And it was so bad that, and very often with these things, when someone misses weight, they'll take the belts off the table, or one side will pay the other a bit of a financial incentive. But what happened with this in this case was they just canceled the fight.
And rightfully so. You cannot compete.
Yeah.
You cannot put your fighter in that risk.
No, of course not. I mean, how much money is enough? Certainly more than Golden Boy would be willing to pay.
Yeah.
So
long-term damage here. But
and they were not very happy with him.
Everyone was not happy at all.
From what I've heard, because that is a big opportunity to get some eyeballs on you, because it was, I mean, you're literally between the Pacquiao-Mayweather replay and the Canelo fight.
And you're altering that TV date because HBO committed to that fight.
Yeah,
and for them to pull it, and as we saw, although it was good for those in the East Coast because the fight did start a little bit earlier.
Yeah, of course.
But it was back to Ricky Burns. Great performance by Ricky Burns. I know he stepped up in weight to take on Omar Figueroa. Figueroa, also a fantastic performance. Lots of back and forth action. Very exciting. Very exciting. A couple of controversial, not controversial, but points being taken away from Ricky Burns for excessive holding. Was prevalent by both fighters, but at the same time, entertaining enough that I believe both fighters came out with their heads held high.
I would agree.
And Omar Figueroa, he has to pretty much take this win. And where does he go next?
Where does he go next? Fight for a PBC belt down the road.
And they could be made at any given minute. I believe there is a manufacturer in England.
That's true. Very good. You have been doing your homework.
Got to do it thanks to their chief digital officer.
Yeah, I mean, listen, if there is a prediction I can make, and please chalk this one, put this one down in pen. The first time there's a legitimate 4-belt unification championship bout on PBC, I guarantee you we see after that fight the equivalent, the introduction of a PBC belt for that division, and really the equivalent of them throwing the other 4 belts in the trash.
Which was very close to, just to go back to the beginning of the show, Mayweather did say he was going to relinquish all his belts, but only at the right time.
Who, Mayweather?
Yes.
Yes.
Which is interesting, because that could be for a PBC belt in September. Who knows? All rumours for now.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Listen, Floyd. Yeah, I don't want to say he's untrustworthy, because I honestly do think that there's like a sort of what's the word? There's a reason behind everything. There's a methodology. Yeah. So what he says, I can't say. It's hard to keep track. I mean, he manipulates the media in a way that sort of benefits himself.
And he does it very well. Yeah. And generates revenue, generates eyeballs, pretty much dominating the sport after 18 years in the business. And rightfully so. He deserves to be where he is right now, as well as getting the attention or media coverage that comes along with it. But nonetheless, great fights of boxing. We saw some spectacular KOs, and we also get to keep the middleweight division going. We have some fantastic fights coming up this weekend. We have Golovkin Monroe, which will be a fun fight. We have Cotto taking on Daniel Giel as well, I want to say there's I really hope that we see some fantastic series of boxing between those three fighters. I feel that could definitely piggyback off the momentum that Mayweather-Pacquiao's brought.
I agree. Obviously, Golovkin. We did a poll at the Guardian. We talked to about 84 different boxing journalists and experts and insiders, some fighters, and so forth. And one of the questions we asked was, who is the next superstar in boxing? I think it was even pay-per-view.
It was that
star. And a lot of people did put Canelo, but surprisingly, given the fact that I personally think he's, just been too good to get a big fight, is a lot of people, I think the majority did put Golovkin. And I think that's purely based not on his name recognition at this point, but the fact that he is 32 years old, that he fights in an extremely fan-friendly style. I would say it's hard to even imagine somebody that fight. I mean, he's like a middleweight Mike Tyson.
Self-proclaimed Mexican style.
Yeah, I mean, he... and
he also fights every 3 to 4 months, so he keeps himself relevant.
Yeah, no, he's been fighting, and I think part of it is because he realizes he's, sort of not a spring chicken.
You can't ignore him.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know.
But he's got an interesting fight. Willie Monroe, winner of the Boxino tournament.
Yeah,
and deserves his chance, I must say.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I haven't taken a look at the odds. I would imagine they are not very favorable.
Fairly one-sided.
But I mean, this is a guy that, listen, 32-0, 29 knockouts. Not to bring up Mike Tyson again, that's a higher knockout percentage than Tyson after 32 fights.
The only way I see Willie Monroe getting a favourable outcome, he has to follow what Curtin Stevens tried to do against Golovkin, which is prevent him from really getting into the zone, frustrate him, throw out a jab, try and use the ring to your advantage. But similar to fighting Mayweather, you're going to have to go 200% because you don't want to get caught. Yeah,
I mean, listen, this is a guy, his jab is like most people's fighters' power punches. I mean, it just, I don't know. To me, you can make a very, very good argument. And I did pose this on Twitter this week, half jokingly, but just to see how it would be received. To me, it's you could make the legitimate argument that he is pound for pound number one, like today. Not based on record, not based on resume, but purely based on form. Who this fighter is on, May the 12th, 2015. So, I don't know. I mean, this is a guy that's just, he's the most feared fighter right now.
He is. I also would be curious to see who actually steps up and takes Golovkin if he does win. Cotto is the mandatory.
Yes, he is, but I don't know if that's going to happen.
Oscar seemed very adamant that Canelo was going to take on Cotto in his next fight and pretty much cap off a pretty good year for pay-per-view.
Yeah, I mean...
If it goes through, and if Golovkin's willing to step aside, or if that WBC belt now goes and becomes vacant.
Yeah, I mean, listen, Cotto obviously got the belt from, I would say, it's fair to say, highly shop-worn Sergio Martinez.
And just on that note, Sergio Martinez is very close to retiring.
He actually denied the reports.
He denied the reports?
He denied the reports. He said he does not believe... The La Nacion carried an interview with Sergio Martinez that basically rode the line that, that his knee is shattered and... He's starting to think about retirement. Martinez, actually, I believe he told Boxing Scene later in the day that the quotes, he doesn't deny giving the interview. However, that the quotes were taken out of context, and he's going to be meeting with doctors. And I think the plan for him, if he can get it all, feeling okay about his physical ability, is to do one fight sort of at a Luna Park or maybe even a bigger venue in Buenos Aires. just as a farewell bout.
And
so,
you were in Buenos Aires before. You
I
know how
was.
They couldn't get enough.
He is a huge star down there, and it took a long time coming. But yeah, I mean, I believe when I went down, I guess for the Martin Murray fight, I think that was 2013. He had just won I believe it's called the Olímpico del Oro, which is given to sort of Argentina's greatest sportsman for a given year, and they gave that to Martinez and that was the year Messi, I believe, scored 92 goals in a calendar year. So it's fascinating.
Messi.
Yeah,
outside of the ring.
Yeah, he beat. Yeah. I think they would have he would have beaten him in the ring too. I'm not sure if Lino can make actually maybe he can make 160.
He could
maybe they are the same weight class.
He's got to work on his jab and his CrossFit.
Yeah, let's see.
Yeah, I'm sure if he wanted to, he probably could. He's that gifted. But yeah, phenomenal weekend of boxing. Can't wait to see how Golovkin. And he should win. He should win comfortably. 148 pounds, Lionel Messi. He can.
Lionel Messi. They could have met at super middleweight.
Yeah.
Or I'm sorry, super welterweight.
They could hit 150 if they want to catch weight.
Very good. I'm sorry, not to cut you off.
Golovkin should take care of business comfortably, I want to say.
Yeah, and then we have, listen, I don't think anybody wants to fight Golovkin. I honestly, I think I've said it before in this space. But I truly believe he is on the sort of Bernard Hopkins career plan where he is just going to have to beat everybody in front of him. In some cases, more than once or twice. Yeah. And eventually the big fight, the mountain will come to Muhammad, as they say.
Yeah.
And I don't know. It just seems that, I don't know. Like, who's going to fight him?
Yeah, it's a case of who really wants to step up and take it. We really want to see Alvarez. We really want to see Cosso.
The thing is, I actually do think Alvarez will. He'll be the first one to step up.
Huge fight.
And that's a good fight.
Yeah.
I mean, who do you tip in that fight?
I would say Canelo could box at that stage. And he can box. He proved it against Lara. He proved that he can take some of Kirkland's best shots.
You like Canelo over Triple G?
I would say yes. Yes,
wow.
Purely under the basis of it going 12 rounds and Canelo using his boxing brain and not his power. Because you're never going to knock out Golovkin, I feel.
Yeah, well, I don't know. Do we know that?
Well, I'm hoping,
Do we know that? I mean, this guy, man, it's like Hagler in the late 70s, Like, it's just, the guy is just, I don't know. And he's beating some world-class guys,
He's knocking out guys like Daniel Gill went full round with Barker.
Yeah.
It's Martin Murray went full round with Sergio Martinez, knocked down Martinez, and then Golovkin destroys
twice,
him.
I believe.
Yeah. And don't forget, Martin Murray also drew with Felix Sturm, which was highly controversial.
In Germany.
Yeah. Which was, as a draw in Germany is just as good as a win.
Exactly. Everyone knows this.
I'll take that. But also on the undercard of Golovkin is
El Chocolito.
Some are saying, and I know it's on ESPN pound for pound, he's quite up there.
He is. A lot of people. I've seen people that have him as high as number 3, and frankly, now with the Pacquiao loss,
the Transnational Boxing Board has him at number 4, I believe, or 5.
I mean, talk about a guy that's fighting a lot. I believe he had a fight. I think he had a fight a month ago.
A couple of weeks ago, I want to say.
Yeah. He had a
February,
fight.
February 28.
Yeah. No. I think this is wrong.
BoxRec, we will have to consult.
I think this is wrong.
He did I wouldn't say he did have a fight.
Didn't he fight Salido?
Possibly.
Who did it look up Salido's last fight on that?
I'm going to have to check that. But he's fighting Edgar Sosa, which
he's fighting Edgar Sosa.
Fan-friendly fight.
Not his first fight in the United States, but certainly his first fight on one of the premium networks. And
great exposure.
Incredibly great exposure. I mean, obviously, guys like El Chocolito historically have had trouble sort of finding a foothold in the super lighter weights. Did he fight Salido?
He did indeed.
He did. He fought Salido on I think early April. It's crazy.
12.
And yeah, It's and listen, Salido's not a light touch.
No,
Salido,
the wily veteran, he will hurt you. And he will frustrate you. He'll teach you things you didn't know about yourself.
Yeah, who was it? Was it Garcia that he gave a little bit of a tough ride at MSG? Mikey Garcia.
Yeah, it was
yeah, and they kind of bailed him out
a fair bit. Yeah,
they bailed him out a little bit. They stopped that fight. I mean, Mikey probably would have won, but I mean, Salido's the guy. I mean, he stopped Juan Manuel Lopez twice. In pretty brutal fashion. Basically ended his career, I would say.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know. We're sort of jumping around here, but I am very excited for El Chocolito. I guess I think I'm fascinated to see whether or not he can sort of make an impression on the American audience. But certainly interested. Love Nicaraguan fighters, and very interested to see him.
Yeah, and he's also, it's quite rare that we see a fighter in the lower weight classes get this much attention.
I know. I think the last time I can really remember it was a certain Filipino by the name of Mayweather-Pacquiao.
Yeah. Yeah, he came up through strawweight, I want to say.
Yeah, well, I mean, the legend has it that to make weight in his first fight, he had to attach weights to the insides of his trunks.
Yeah. Funny how it turns out.
You know, I got not to go back to Pacquiao, but it is funny and sad in a sense that it's very rare. Boxers are like bands, you know, like rock bands, and it's so rare that they ever go out on top or anything even resembling gracefully. Yeah. And it's you know, I like to think this is sort of the worst of it, sort of a clumsy, sort of ham-handed reach at a shoulder injury, which I believe was legitimate. I think Pacquiao's team really let him down. I think, you know, Michael Collins. You know, how his team did not check the box in the questionnaire is just sort of baffling to me. How is he expected
to have an injection without telling the Nevada State Athletic Commission 2 hours before a fight? Yeah. That's just ridiculous. You're never going to get that in any country or any state. Yeah,
so I just... I think ultimately, you know, here's my op-ed. I think ultimately some of the company that Manny sort of kept around in his corner ultimately, and it's very, listen, it's dramatic. I mean, this is what makes, and listen, most people that just casually watch the fight and dismiss the fight so don't even sort of read between the lines like this. But the truth is, this is dramatic because I think ultimately a lot of the sort of the dubious company that Manny Pacquiao kept around over the years at sort of one of the most critical points in his career, it completely backfired on him. And Absolutely. I think this is a very profound and massive case of that.
And hence why a lot of frustration is being directed at Manny Pacquiao for pretty much failing to really take the fight seriously, I want to say. You know you can't fight Floyd unless you're 200, 300%. You go in there with any type of injury, a visible injury that will prevent you from competing at your full potential, you are never going to win.
Yeah, well, I don't know. I mean, I completely believe the injury and in the stories of the injury. However, we don't have a David Hay-esque pick of the toe until I see the MRI right now.
Which the Nevada State Athletic Commission wanted to see that night, and it was not possible.
And they could not supply it. So who knows? Who knows?
All a mystery. Well,
the fight game.
Yeah.
The fight game. It's ever spinning. Never boring.
Never any lack of surprise.
Never any lack of surprise. Except the night when Floyd Mayweather did exactly what we expected him to do for 5 years. But besides that, never a surprise.
Well, that's the cap's another great show.
Wow. Next, is it already over?
It is already over.
Oh, my goodness.
Next week, actually, we have a special guest. We will have Francisco from, I believe, Univision Deportes. He'll be coming down. And he'll be talking about how fighters make weight and how they do not make weight. A very interesting conversation.
That is fascinating.
Because he actually works with a few fighters.
Oh, wow.
And he'll be telling us...
Maybe he'll have some insight on the rash of PBC fighters.
Yeah. I mean...
That have seemingly
I wish I could just say it was PBC, but Frankie Gomez ruined that for me.
No, but you're not the first person to notice the disproportionate correlation of premier boxing champions.
Yeah, well, all be revealed, I want to say.
All will be revealed. Just wait, guys. Just give us some time. We're going to make this very, very special. Thank you so much for listening.
Yeah, thanks to Al Heyman. Thanks to God.
Thank you, Al Heyman. Thank you, God. My promoter, Bob Arum.
Yeah, but it's always fun. Got Oscar De La Hoya, Golden Boy. Can't forget that.
Oscar. Thank you so much for everything.
Yeah, thanks.
Kelly Swanson. Thank you, Kelly.
Yeah, Kelly always listens.
Kelly always listens.
And if to all those who are listening on iTunes, please leave a review. We need those.
5 stars.
Or nothing.
Oh my God.
Yeah, 5 stars or nothing.
I'm cutting. We are leaving our heart and soul on the table with this.
Yeah, and with that, we will see you in 2 weeks.
See you in 2 weeks.